Kira, Finn, and Sir Ian are seen having a conversation about Eren after our MC left. Kira tells Sir Ian that for her, Eren still doesn't have what it takes to be called a swordsman. To this, Sir Ian tells Kira that they should give him some time, because if it's Eren, then he's sure that our hero will probably get through. I mean, it is a prerequisite for every main character to get over every hurdle thrown their way. It's in the main character guidebook. The next day, as Eren was about to leave the academy for his new adventure, Lance tells Eren about going to the west and adds that the 5 western kingdoms have a lot of swordsmanship academies and famous coliseums. What's more, Judith probably went there as well. As the two said their goodbyes, Lance couldn't help but feel bad at his defeat at the hands of Eren. But before he could start wallowing in it, Kira Finn walked up to Lance and gave him some advice for him to grow as well. To not let his inferiority complex get in his way and overcome it, just like how he always did. To be fair, Lance did improve a lot from when we last saw him a few chapters ago, don't you all think so as well? As Eren and his master Sorcerer Cat went on their way to the city, with no idea where they were heading, an orc suddenly appears and asks them for any food that they could give him. Wait a minute, this orc seems an awful lot of familiar. The orc seems to remember Eren and tells him that he was the one who foretold his future 5 years ago. Eren was suddenly remembered the orc saying that he was the one who gave him the note. Eren and the orc then went to a diner, and as the orc was munching all the food on the table, Lulu, who we have been calling Ruru all this time because of a different scanlation, tells Eren that the orc seems suspicious and dangerous. And yeah, we're gonna roll with Lulu instead of Ruru from now on, okay? Cut us some slack, why don't you? Anyway, our MC, bless his kind soul, sensed that this orc was not a bad person and doesn't consider him as a threat. He couldn't be bad after all. He gave the note back to Eren that proved to be helpful to our hero. Although there's also the fact that the orc asked about his age back then. Maybe this orc knows something about his dream. After the orc finished his meal, Lulu walked up to him, still not very comfortable with him, and said that he was just basically a stranger who seems fishy. And at that moment, the orc suddenly puts out a wooden ball and shows it to the Sorcerer Cat, which in turn the little mystic couldn't resist the smell of the wooden ball. He immediately grabbed the ball like it was a fur ball. The orc explained that it has a powder in it which came from a plant called Taiho, of which the plant was found only in the northwest region. And hey, Cats seems to go crazy about it. That's why, at that exact moment, Lulu told Eren that this orc might be a really good person. The orc tells Eren that he'll pay him back for the food, but his payment would be his fortune-telling skills. The orc tells him that he is a fortune-teller orc, which, compared to a human fortune-teller, is much more powerful. So the orc started his fortune-telling and tells Eren that there's a persimmon tree where he lives, to which Eren responded with a no. Okay, so that was a flop. The orc immediately backs it up that maybe Eren was a child back then, but he doesn't remember it. In response to this, Eren told him that he was sure that there wasn't any persimmon tree back then. So the orc told him that maybe it's been planted at this time, so when he gets back home, there will be the tree. At this point, they were thinking that this guy was a fluke. Lulu then joins the fortune-telling, and the orc tells him that he likes raw salmon, which is pretty obvious to cats. Is you for real? Lulu immediately tells Eren that this orc is absolutely a quack, a sham artist. That's why he has no money for food. Before the two really believes that he really is a quack, the orc inhales deeply and gazes at Eren with eyes as cold as ice. It's like his eyes can really see through a human soul, and tells Eren that the burden in his heart became heavier. Eren was shocked upon hearing those words. He explains that something heavy, like an iron stake, is stuck in his chest, which is placed by someone. The two were in total shock at hearing these words from the shaman orc. He also explains that he's not using his skills as a fortune teller, but as an elementalist to look into Eren. An elementalist believes that the origin of life is made up of 5 types of energy: earth, metal, fire, wood, and water, says the orc, who has now taken a small bag containing sand and put it on the table. That's how he sensed the metal energy within Eren. The orc believes that the iron stake in his chest is disrupting the energy balance within his body, but he cannot just get rid of it. He needs to achieve harmony, especially since one of the energies within Eren is too strong. What our MC needs to do is borrow the power of incompatible energy to harness it. And as the orc says this, a metallic object that seems to be a metal alloy protrudes from the sand, serving as an example to what's happening within Eren. As the orc continues to explain this to Eren, he snaps his finger, and as soon as he does, the alloy was set ablaze. The orc continues to tell our hero that he needs to harness his fire energy to control the metal. What's more, The orc added that if Eren can manage to suppress his metal energy, then there's a high chance that it could turn into an opportunity. For now, our hero may be seeing the iron stake in his heart as a burden. But with the use of flames, he could create an incredible sword that anyone and everyone would desire. As the fortune teller told this, he smacked the flaming alloy with his 2 hands, then opened it to reveal a small sword. Convinced at what he said, Eren asks him what he needs to do, and the orc advised him to intensify the burning in his heart. And right now, there is but a small flame burning inside our hero now, which was not present when he first saw him years ago. The orc suggested that Eren should move. Just like how one puts a log to keep the fire going, our hero needs to work diligently to get the results that he wants, which will, in turn, make the flame grow stronger. Soon enough, it was time to say goodbye, and as Eren and his sorcerer master turned their backs, the orc quickly called out to them and asked if it was all right to accompany the two. And since the fortune teller's been wandering the continent for the last decade, he could work as their guide as long as Eren provides him with a little salary. And no, this is totally not about the salary at all. Eren only took a moment to decide that he was good with the orc traveling with them. And as soon as he did, the fortune teller exclaimed in delight that finally he's gonna have a stable income. As soon as the two heard this, they just stared at him, but the orc quickly explained that it's not every day you get to see the growth of a promising young lad, so being able to witness it firsthand will be worthwhile. Lulu, however, just told him that he won't be getting his salary if he did his job poorly, so the orc only promised that he'll do well. And then there were 3. Since Eren didn't have a specific place in mind on where he was going next, the orc suggested that they should visit Darinku. It's a city that has everything from dwarves to blacksmiths. Plus, he also said that dropping by Darinku before they reached the 5 kingdoms of the west could prove to be useful to Eren. Hearing the term blacksmiths, the sorcerer cat rebutted, while yawning that our hero doesn't even need a new sword to begin with, but the fortune teller explained that the purpose of their visit there is not only for the equipment. He stressed the fact that meeting figures who are the best in harnessing metal and fire could be a good experience for Eren, seeing the process up close. From melting a block of metal using fire that will take the form of a ball to see the ball shaped into a sword, witnessing this process up close could help Eren to learn how to control the fire in his heart. Now that the orc said this out loud, Eren's sorcerer teacher agreed, adding that they use this same trick when they do sorcery training. After all, it's much handier if our hero has a solid idea of what he wishes to happen in his head for it to be more effective. As soon as Eren remembers how a sword is made, Lulu suggested that they could use it for his mental training, and given how it's not his first rodeo in sorcery, this would be easy peasy. Convinced at what his sorcerer teacher had to say, Eren decided that they'll get to Darinku, and the orc was more than happy to lead them to a shortcut to reach their destination faster. Little did the two know that they will see the full skill of the orc in Darinku. Turns out, the fortune teller orc is a pretty good haggler. The two witnessed firsthand how the orc haggled with the innkeeper with so much intensity that he even threatened to cause a scene and shout, so the former had no choice but to concede. As soon as the innkeeper went back inside, the fortune teller orc told Eren to drop his stuff in their room, and added that he knows a good place to eat. In the restaurant, the orc used his regular customer card and guilt-tripped the server into giving them 5 free mugs of beer. You all can't deny it, even Eren can't. Our man Kubaro got some skills. At night, as the 3 of them lay to sleep, Lulu calls out to Kubaro to tell them a funny story. Can't believe this manhwa took this long to reveal the fortune teller's name man. So back to the present, Kubaro asked Eren if he knew who the 10 strongest people on the continent were. To this, our hero answered that the only one he knows is Sir Ian from Chrono. Then there's also the head of the Lindsay family, as well as Ilya's older brother Joshua. Hearing these names, the orc sighed in exasperation, questioning how could Eren know so little in this world, especially if he wants to be a swordsman. Of course, he doesn't Kubaro. He's been sleeping for over 15 years, then got stuck in a magical sphere for 5 more years. So anyway, the fortune teller started narrating that the strongest on the continent came from the 5 kingdoms of the West and the Holy Kingdom. It has always been like that for generations now. But there was one that stood out from the rest. Head Swordmaster Ian from Chrono's Swordsmanship Academy. He was the leading figure among these powerful swordsmen, who also include Captain Julius Hoole of the Holy Kingdom's White Knight, Captain Rigoberto Clark of the Red Knights, as well as the 5 heads of the major swordsman families, including Joshua Lindsay, and finally, Karakum, the mighty orc warrior. So that's 10 of the strongest swordsmen on the continent. But Kubaro also mentioned that Edenit is also worthy to consider in the list, making 11 of them. Eren perked up at the mention of Edenit, but his sorcerer cat master complained, saying one more person is missing from the list. To this, Kubaru told the mystic cat that there was actually one more person considered the strongest. The fortune teller orc said that he's not familiar if it because of Sir Ian's meteoric rise, and even though the majority of the continent picks him as the strongest swordsman, Kubaru has an entirely different opinion. He thinks Kun is the strongest swordsman in the continent. The man's pretty impressive because he became a sword master at the age of 70. Can you imagine becoming an OP at the age of 70? At the mention of this, Eren suddenly sat up on his bed with Lulu, saying that he must have been really determined to do something like that. Well, it did come with a lot of hardships and naysayers. Kubaru continued to narrate that Kun received a lot of criticism and ridicule for his foolishness. Pretty understandable though, the orc added, since who in their right mind would want to become a swordmaster at the age of 70? And yet, Kun did. He was bent on achieving his dream, and now, at the age of 90, is hailed as the strongest swordsman on the continent by some. Because of this fact, it affected a lot of people, not only swordsmen. Hearing all this, our hero can't help but praise Kun, but at the same time, Eren also said that this legendary sword master must have also been pretty impressive at 50, even though he's still just an ordinary swordsman ridiculed at the time, Eren said. In addition to that, our hero also said that there must be a lot of other people who are just like Kun, people who haven't been recognized yet and continue to move forward. They may have not bloomed yet, but someday, they definitely will, Eren added. Hearing this, Kubaru grinned at our hero's attitude and agreed with Eren's thought that there are a lot of people in this world who have yet to reach their time. But in his mind, the fortune teller orc thought to himself how Eren's perspective isn't just limited to his blade, and that he was able to look at things from a broader perspective, which is pretty interesting. The next day, the trio set out early, with Kubaru pointing out that they just need to pass through the Alhad Mountains to reach Darinku. However, they just can't pass through here easily, since bandits roam about in the place, he added. Eren was surprised to hear this, but the orc assured him that they only need to join a merchant group, and that there was nothing to worry about, especially since Eren has a warrior card too. True enough, Eren just had to show them his warrior card, and he was easily accepted into the group. Likewise, Kubaru was able to join another group easily as well, since many considered fortune teller orcs as symbols of luck. Lulu made a side comment about how gullible they are for falling to that superstition, but suddenly, the master-student duo got distracted by someone shouting their services to take care of shoes, armor, and anything to them in exchange for being paid. The owner of the voice is a young girl who's talking to a seated knight, asking if she could finish by the time they leave, which the former agreed to excitedly. Just then, the girl turned to Eren's band, skipping over to them, much to the shock of Lulu to her sudden appearance. The little girl excitedly pointed out to the talking cat, saying how cute it is, and the other could only return the sentiment. The little girl, with a bright smile, introduced herself as Anya, not to be confused with Lloyd and your forger's Anya. Mind you, she tells Eren that she could fix their shoes, armor, or whatever they want as long as they pay her. Eren thanked her but declined her offer, so Anya happily went away. And as soon as she did, the master-student duo sensed that she was actually a sorcerer. In due time, the merchants and their respective bands started on their way, and while they were walking, Eren shared something heavy that has been weighing on his mind. His sorcerer teacher was quick to notice this and called the attention of Kubaru, saying that Eren has his face on. Seeing this, the orc asked our hero what his concerns were, and Eren asked him if he could use his sword against people. Kubaru was confused at what he said, but our hero quickly added that he's never killed anyone before, and today, he felt that need. He's aware that there will come a time that he has to do just that, even if he doesn't want to. But will he not hesitate then? The need is there, but could he do so to fellow humans? After all, bandits are still humans, so is scaring and chasing them off the right thing to do? On the other hand, Eren also thought of the possibility that if he let them go, the bandits could continue to do bad things to other people, so he can't really say that he did the right thing by letting them go. Man, Eren's not pulling his punches with this kind of heavy topic in the morning. Even Kubaru couldn't help but laugh a little, considering Eren's overthinking a pretty heavy subject, which is something he shouldn't even worry about right now. But Eren couldn't help but worry, especially since he heard that there were bandits there led by a terrible man named Kajal. To this, Kubaru explained that Kajal wants to maintain peace, and that his group has been here for 5 years now. As long as you pay them, they'll let you pass, says Kubaru. As for the merchant groups, they look for escorts for intimidating bandits, not to fight them. So in a nutshell, these bandits seem more like businessmen. And the merchants don't really think of them as bad people too. The best explanation Kubaru could think of about this situation is comparing it to paying taxes in the city. But does Eren even know how to do that? But Eren, who's a little old-fashioned and clueless when it comes to things like these, questions Kubaru that doesn't that still make them bad people for taking money from the merchants? And how come the surrounding kingdoms and territories are okay with this? He adds. To his surprise, another knight answers our hero's question, saying that the merchants offer bribes to the surrounding territories and that they've established a mutual understanding. Lulu was the first to cave into this kind of talk, with the cat holding its head in frustration. And even Eren admits that it's a pretty complicated situation. On the other hand, Kubaru just said that it's just how the world is, good and evil, right and wrong, and that there are a lot of things you can't categorize into one thing. Their conversation got cut short at the sight of the bandits approaching them. And as one of the merchants readily shows the toll, asking the bandits to let them pass easily, one of the bandits shouted in anger, telling the merchants to leave all of their belongings and to get lost. Well, so much for mutual understanding. Even the sorcerer cat had to wonder what happened to the mutual understanding Kubaru was talking about earlier. Hearing what the bandits said, the merchant was confused at his demand, with the former pleading with him to just let them be on their way. Ame was trying to get a look at what was happening when the bandit who spoke earlier, the group's leader Kajal, shouted once again that he won't repeat what he said for a third time and told them to get lost. Still, the merchant thought that Kajal was still joking, telling him to cut it out, but the bandit leader just told him to shut up and that from now on, this is how things will be. By now, the merchant group is growing restless, and Eren's sorcery teacher hits Kubaru on the head, as the orc looks at Kajal in confusion, saying that he's never been like this before. Eren, on the other hand, sensed something foul in the air, so he takes a step forward, with Lulu asking him what was wrong. Our hero only answered that he sensed demonic energy coming from Kajal. Lulu then asked if Eren didn't feel like he was changing, like what happened at the expedition, and our hero noted that this demonic energy was pretty weak, which is why he still has a pretty good hold on himself. Upon hearing this, Kubaru asked what they were talking about, and Eren explained that it had something to do with the iron stake in his heart. His emotions get intense as soon as he senses demonic energy, making him lose control as rage takes over. However, Kajal doesn't seem to have turned into a demon, which further confuses our hero. Just then, a certain knight from their band steps up, saying how this is the very reason why they can't trust bandits. Seeing him walk forward to them, some others from the group excitedly said that he must be Wolfgang, based on the sword he unsheathed, Glacial Blade. Seeing him, many of them breathe a sigh of relief since they know Wolfgang is a veteran among veterans, but the merchant from earlier still asked if the knight will be alright. To this, Wolfgang only told him not to worry and approached Kajal, warning the latter that they'll most likely suffer damages if they fight here. So, if they want to avoid just that, then the bandits might as well let the merchant group pass, as Wolfgang draws his sword in front of an unmoving Kajal. True to his bandit nature, all Kajal said was how nice Glacial Blade was, asking Wolfgang to hand it over. But the proud swordsman made the mistake of letting his guard down because of Kajal's praise that he failed to see the bandit leader take a big swing and played whack-a-mole with the swordsman, hitting right in the face. Wolfgang was smacked pretty hard that he flew in the opposite direction, losing consciousness as soon as he hit a tree. One of the merchants, upon seeing what happened, quickly urged one of the swordsmen, who has a warrior card, to step up and fight, but the latter was too scared to do so, seeing what happened to Wolfgang. By now, the merchants have started to quarrel with one of them, suggesting to just hand over their goods, scared for his life. But the other one was against the idea, and before they could reach an agreement, Kajal's voice can be heard over them, with the bandit leader saying that he's changed his mind, he's just gonna take all of them out, seeing how they pissed him off real bad. As soon as he said this, the demonic energy within him grew stronger, while the merchants cowered in fear, but Eren only stepped up, saying he has a plan. Our hero walked over to where the bandit group was and told Kajal to stop what he was doing right now since he clearly wasn't himself. Annoyed at his sudden appearance, Kajal only asked who he is, and our MC introduced himself as Irene Pereira, an official trainee from Chrono's Swordsmanship Academy's 27th cohort. Hearing this, the merchants started murmuring among themselves, thinking the Chrono's Swordsmanship Academy? And did he mention the 27th cohort? Isn't that the golden cohort? But Kajal was unfazed, and if anything, he was irritated now more than ever, as he once again takes a big swing, while shouting at Eren what kind of trainee he was, if he can't even bring a sword, But our hero was unnerved and caught the head of Kajal's mallet with one hand. Next one OP move right there. That's our MC. The bandit leader was shocked, but Eren only looked him in the eye and asked him where he got his necklace from. Our hero quickly threw him to the ground, and as Kajal started to get up to take a swing at Eren again, our hero started to conjure his sword. But before we get to see what went down, let's take a little trip down memory lane when Eren first woke up. In this scene, we see Kurl talking to her older brother about how he's not weak anymore, telling him to wipe that blank look off his face. To this, Eren thanks his sister for worrying about him, but that's not who Kurl is worried about. She's actually worried for other people. According to the sorceress, when one is strong, they have to let it be known to other people. If they don't, people would only take one good look at their faces and assume the wrong idea. And if people do, then one has to keep teaching this lesson over and over again. Now back to the present. As Eren conjures his sword, Kajal goes in, bent on hitting our hero, but Eren is focused on executing a move that's just enough to scare the bandit leader. Eren does his signature vertical slash with a force so strong it cracked the very grounds the bandits were standing on. As the dust starts to settle, Eren looks down on Kajal, who is now on the ground, trembling at his feet. Just another baddest day for our hero, Eren, who can't seem to catch a break. Eren approaches the bandit leader and quickly snaps the necklace from him, and as soon as he did, our hero could feel the demonic energy emanating from the item. It's not as strong, but it's still pretty intense for a demonic energy that made Kajal act that way. Our hero then questioned Kajal about where he got it from, but the latter admitted that he can't remember since the memory was pretty blurred in his mind. Hearing this, the merchants were enraged, threatening to beat him up, but our hero decided that he'll believe what Kajal said and took the necklace from him, and at the same time asked the bandit leader if he'll open up the path this time. Kajal quickly agreed and apologized to the merchants for how he behaved earlier, and thankfully, the merchant group was able to pass the Alhad Mountains smoothly. Before they left, the merchants also thanked Eren for what he did and offered to help him out if he ever needs anything. As soon as they left, the cat mystic immediately hopped onto Kubaru's head, saying that they shouldn't have let the bandits off the hook. But Eren tried to reason out that they weren't like that in the first place, and because he already took the necklace, there shouldn't be any more problems after that. But Lulu wasn't convinced and just said that if they ever pulled a stunt like that again, then it will break their bones this time. Changing the subject, Eren said that he needs to get back to training with his sword once again since it has been a while, but Kubaru only told him that he looks pretty strong earlier in the day. To this, our hero said that if he wasn't strong enough to take down Kajal, then a lot of people would have been hurt. So in line with this, our hero believes that the stronger he becomes, then the more option he will have when it comes to situations like these. And then there's the Rinkutu. With Eren confirming to the orc that a lot of famous swordsmen are present there, Kubaru affirms, saying that there is a good opportunity for Eren there. Furthermore, the orc remembers the place for having a lot of duels, wherein the winner would get to have his own sword forged by a master blacksmith. Hearing that, Eren smiled, saying he'll be looking forward to that, and as he did, Kubaru noticed that the fire in his heart grew bigger. Just then, Eren remembered that he still has the necklace from Kajal and thought that he better dispose of it soon. With his sword already drawn, he was about to smash it, but Kubaru stopped him at the last minute and explained that these kinds of items can't be destroyed just like that. So what the orc did instead was to keep it in a fire element pouch with anti-demonic powers for now. And then the trio heard a child's exclamation. It's Anya. The little girl kept praising how cool Eren's sword is and proposed to exchange it with her treasure. She want a what? Eren just stood there looking at Anya as the little girl tells our MC to trade his sword for her treasure. She wants to give Eren's sword to her captain as a gift. Our hero, quite troubled with her offer, just told Anya that he can't give it to her, since he's the only one who can wield it and is a precious item for him. But Anya only answered that she can wield, further puzzling Eren. Suddenly, Lulu appears behind the little girl, just in time for the latter to pull out her so-called treasure out of thin air, a gigantic golden pig, far bigger than her head. Lulu and Kubaru were impressed, especially the orc, who got his eyes shine on at the sight of the pig. But for Eren, he became cautious because of the intense amount of sorcery emanating from the object, and as he was about to ask what she uses it for, Lulu talked over him and asked how she made it. In turn, Anya gladly answered that she was able to make it with the money she saved for a year. Turning to Eren once again, she asks our hero to trade his sword with her golden piggy bank. But Eren was firm and said no, even when Anya told him she could make it bigger. To prove a point, she procured a pouch from her belongings and took one gold coin to insert inside the golden piggy. As soon as she did, the item instantly grew inside. This time, Lulu and Kubaru are leaning toward the idea of exchanging Erin's sword with the golden piggy, but this time, Erin gave a firm no, even reprimanding the two for rolling with Anya's request. For the last time, Erin told Anya that she can't have the sword, even if she did a cute little pout to appeal to our hero. But thankfully, she didn't take our hero's rejection to heart. In fact, she left the trio with a smile on her face, saying she'll do her best to make more money as she travels to Darinko. And maybe next time, Erin would change his mind. The traveling trio only looked at her retreating figure, with Kubaru saying how she's an interesting figure and Lulu saying that she likes her. Later that night, Erin was about to head to bed when Kubaru called for him, asking him to join the orc at the table. At this, our hero was quick to decline, saying he doesn't drink, but Kubaru just pointed to another man seated at his table who's got some pretty juicy information to share about Darinko. Curious about what he had to say, Erin took a seat, and as soon as he did, the man said that the greatest blacksmith of Darinko, the dwarf Vulcanus, has come out of seclusion. He further tells Erin that the swords Vulcanus make are so impressive that many swordsmen across the continent are eager to get their hands on his creations. One of the defining features of his work is that he engraves numbers on the swords he took a liking to, which became known as number swords. As of now, it's been reported that there are only 9 of them in existence. Now, here's the reason why Vulcanus number swords are in demand. It's because there are only 2 ways you can own one. The first is if you're a swordmaster, and the other is if the sent person is destined to become a swordmaster. Erin was surprised, but the man just continued with his story, saying how 10 years ago, 3 swordsmen obtained numbering swords, and as time went on, it didn't take long for these 3 to become swordmasters. And not just them, but all the others who have come to own a numbering sword. And here's the most important part: in 2 days, Darinko will hold a competition to determine who will be the owner of the 10th numbering sword. At the mention of this, a swarm of men immediately appeared on the man's side, curious about the competition, including Wolfgang, who's all bandaged up. They were all eager to know more about the guidelines for the competition, but the man, overwhelmed by them, only said that he was not sure about the details and told the lot to just wait for the details that will probably be announced soon. Hearing all this, Erin just said to himself how this would be a good experience for him, regardless if it involved his sword or not, seeing that many swordsmen must be taking part in the competition. So he decided that he'll compete as well. When Wolfgang heard this, he immediately abandoned the thought of joining. I mean, it's Erin we're talking about here. Even the rest of the men also conceded just like him. With that, our hero got up and bade goodnight to Kubaru and the rest, but the orc tried to encourage him to stay, telling our hero that there are a lot more interesting stories the man hasn't shared yet, but Erin just said he's tired and a little pressured. With that, Kubaru just let him leave, all the while thinking that Erin's pretty different from the rest. He thought that usually, swordsmen would jump at the opportunity of hearing more stories, but our hero's not into that at all. Sure, it could be his personality, the orc thought, but Erin is definitely different from all the swordsmen Kubaru has met until now. It's like he's the most far off from being a swordsman. Back in his room, Erin recollects the events of today and noticed how he almost lost control once again as soon as he sensed demonic energy. Thankfully, it was only a small amount, which is probably why he caught himself, and things wrapped up well in the end. Thinking that things like these may happen in the future again, Erin decided to do a little mental training. As soon as he did, he thought of an image in his mind of a shadow figure standing in front of a large metal block. Then came the next day, with the trio finally stepping foot in Darinko, the city of artisans. Kubaru wasn't kidding when he said there were a lot of swordsmen because the city is flooded with their lot. But the orc only said that they must have flocked the city upon hearing the news about the competition. While walking, they saw Anya approach a silver-haired man, calling him a cheapskate in an accusatory tone and asking the captain's whereabouts, while the man only laughed at her. Upon setting his eyes on the man, Lulu's tail suddenly perked up and the cat stood on guard while saying that the man Anya is talking to is actually a master. Kubaru was shocked, but he thought to himself that the man seems to be powerful, but a sword master? Is it possible a new one was born on the continent without his knowing? But the orc's line of thought got cut off when Anya and her companion approached the trio, with the man introducing himself as Jirag. Erin and the others introduced themselves in turn, and Jirag was quick to point out that their little band is interesting, just like Anya. But he didn't mean any offense when he said that, but thankfully, Erin's not the type to take offense at the little things. Well, a lot of us could learn a thing or two about not taking things personally from Aaron's chill attitude. Back to the group, Jurog asked our hero if he could see his sword, to which Aaron quickly agreed. The silver-haired man said that it's because Anya won't shut up about his sword, so Jurog has to see it for himself. As soon as Aaron conjured it, Jurog took one look and suddenly, one of his eyes reflected that of the old man in Aaron's dream. While thinking the sword isn't the only interesting he's seeing, our hero, on the other hand, flinched at the feeling of being stared upon, but just as he did, the feeling was gone just like that. Jurog apologized, saying he must have stared too much and made Aaron uncomfortable, adding that now he understands why Anya wants it. The little girl continues to ramble on the side about how the captain would love it, but the older man just reminded the little girl that she just can't take people's belongings. To this, she reasoned out that she was going to trade her golden piggy bank that she has been saving for a year for Aaron's sword. Still, Jurog told her not to bother them anymore, and with that, the strange duo walked away. Aaron only said that he looks strong, and now he's even more curious about what their captain is like. That person must be pretty amazing considering they have these two as their underling. But before they could talk more about Anya and Jurog, a sudden commotion caught the trio's attention. The crowd is in awe as the twin swordsmen Charlotte and Victor appeared. As usual, Aaron knows nothing, so he had to ask Kubaru if the two are famous, to which the orc confirmed. What's more, Kubaru also said that they could even stand up against a master together. Seeing the competition, Kubaru tells our hero that this won't be easy as he initially thought, but Aaron only answered that since Jurog will also be competing, this will be a good opportunity for him. Once again, he says that he'll just try his best and think of it as a learning experience. Kubaru was quiet for a moment, then told Aaron a solemn piece of advice, which he said our hero could ignore if he wants to. Sure, swordsmen need to fight against fellow swordsmen to better their skills, but Kubaru tells Aaron that he shouldn't just go around fighting others for the sake of learning from them. He then tells our hero that when Kun faced Sir Ian, was he just thinking of it as a learning experience? Of course not. He was bent on beating his fellow old man from Chrono, his urge to win getting stronger each time. Because of this, Kubaru believes that Kun was able to achieve the level he's at now since he continuously built his spirit. In a nutshell, Kubaru tells Aaron that if he wants to be a swordsman, then he better compete with the intention to win. Like heck yeah, finally someone gave our MC the pep talk he needs. Aaron was surprised to hear those words come out of Kubaru's mouth, so much so that they left him speechless. Kubaru, on the other hand, thought that he may have overstepped and quickly apologized to our hero, thinking he got too harsh with his words. Aaron, however, just thanked him for hearing all that since it made him finally understand what he thinks he's been missing all this time. Without elaborating further, our hero took his leave and headed straight to the inn, just saying that he needs to think more about Kubaru's advice. Back in his room, Aaron sat on his bed, already prepared for meditation and thinking of the desire to win. Honestly speaking, Aaron admitted to himself that it was something he never thought of. Even when he was at Chrono Swordsmanship Academy, he was just focused on becoming someone similar to the old man. On the other hand, his friends Brett and Judith all practiced their swordsmanship with the intent of beating their opponents. Remembering the general concept of sorcery, Aaron is reminded once again that the purest form of desire a swordsman can have is achieved through infusing desire with a strong fighting spirit. He somewhat realized that maybe this was the reason Kubaru gave him that advice. But then again, has Aaron ever felt something like that before? Aaron, you did. Remember when you wanted to overtake Ilya during the midterm evaluation? The next morning, Kubaru was still worried about the thing he sent to Aaron, but his intentions were good. Although he admits that maybe he got a little too greedy on seeing our hero's potential. Now, the orc regrets doing that and said to himself that he should have been more mindful of Aaron's temperament, but Lulu just told him he shouldn't worry about it. And just as the cat said this, Aaron came down and joined the two at the table. Lulu was quick to notice that there was something different about Aaron today, and even though it can't pinpoint exactly what it is, Lulu just said he looks much better. As for Kubaru, he saw that the fire burning in Aaron's heart is pretty much ablaze right now, burning with so much more intensity compared to the last time. Since they were all set, the trio went ahead and proceeded to go to the Darinku arena. At the arena, a lot of famous swordsmen were spotted walking around, including Double Blade Krashu, as well as the intimidating One Strike Randall. The three are now seated at the stands, with Kubaru pointing out that Charlotte and Victor may not be the guaranteed winners since there are a lot of talents joining the competition. Just then, the esteemed dwarf Vulcanus walked in, accompanied by two other dwarves, and without further ado, proceeded to introduce himself along with explaining the mechanics of the competition. Since everybody knows the prize of the competition is the 10th numbering sword, Vulcanus explained the rules and said that 2 challengers just need to step on stage and fight it out until one of them emerges as the victor. As soon as the other participant is out, another swordsman can step in, with the victor remaining on stage with the loser leaving. If the victor decides to quit, then 2 new challengers need to step up and so another battle will commence. Hearing all these, there were murmurs in the crowd, wondering how a victor will be decided through this method. But before anyone could ask, Vulcanus himself cleared it out himself. The goal of the competition isn't to find a champion. Rather, its goal is to find someone who will ignite inspiration within Vulcanus to create the 10th numbering sword. So until he finds that spark, the competition will go on as long as he wants. And added that the 2 other dwarves behind him share the same intent. So that's what it is. Kubaru thought that it was pretty interesting how he gathered all the swordsmen here to be able to complete the 10th numbering sword and not the other way around. Soon enough, the competition commenced, and the first 2 swordsmen to step on the stage were Victor and Randall. They hyped a lot of the spectators up, especially since the 2 were hailed as part of the strongest. Randall, however, was purely focused on Victor, telling the other man how much he despised pretenders like him. What's more, the masked swordsman also told Victor that he knows he hides a lot of wicked things behind his smile. Victor, on the other hand, seems pretty chill, just shrugging off what Randall had to say and even calling him his angry junior. Seeing the animosity behind the 2 men on stage, Lulu can't help but ask what's their deal, and Kubaru was more than ready to give his answer. According to the orc, Victor and Charlotte are pretty well respected among mercenaries, aside from the fact that they're pretty powerful as well. Their reputation has preceded them, with many stories going around about how they destroyed demon nests, offered services in the countryside for low pay, and even saved merchants from deadly monsters. But the fact of the matter is, the more famous you become, the more others are bent on taking you down, which is probably the case between Victor and Randall. Back on the stage, Randall asked Vulcanus if it was possible to kill their opponents. At the mention of this, some of the spectators got chills, but the legendary blacksmith didn't mind and allowed him to do so. Of course, this can only be if his opponent agreed to his proposal as well, and Victor was quick enough to say that he didn't mind either. For him, it doesn't matter, as long as he overpowers Randall, right? Taunting the other swordsman up front. Seeing that the 2 are pretty much ready to go, Vulcanus gave the go signal at the tap of his finger. As soon as he did, the 2 moved at lightning speed, and before you know it, there was a loud clink. We see a certain object flying in the air, and just like that, Randall's sword was broken, making Victor the victor. No pun intended. As Randall looked back at his opponent, Victor just sighed in relief, saying that he would have had a hole in his chest right now if he didn't manage to fend it off. The crowd went wild as Aaron starts to look alive and was impressed at how strong Victor was. Meanwhile, Anya and Jerog stand a certain distance away from the arena, just enough so that they could see how the fight played out. The silver-haired man praised Victor, saying that he was strong, with Anya asking him how strong he was. To this, he just said that Victor could be considered an expert swordsman, and based on Jerog's assumption, he'd at least be in the top 200 swordsmen in the continent. But more important than that, Jerog asked Anya if she already confirmed if it was those 2, of which the latter answered in the affirmative. By those 2, he meant Victor and Charlotte, with her explaining that they're the ones he's looking for. All right, since the gold lines turned red. Hearing that, Jerog gave the signal for Anya to leave a mark on them, but Anya said that she doesn't even want to spend 2 days worth on them. Still, she conjured 2 golden piggy banks, smashed them, and out came a string of gold light that flew directly to Charlotte and Victor's foreheads, with a golden symbol forming where the light has entered. Now, aside from these 2, Anya broke another golden piggy bank, and this time, she directed the golden light to fly to Lulu's forehead. The sorcerer cat let out a surprised sound and Aaron asked what was wrong. But Lulu just asked our hero to scratch its forehead for him, as Kubaru was having the time of his life watching the matches. Seeing that the golden light landed on Lulu, Jerog asked Anya in exasperation why she chose the cat as her target when it should have been Aaron. To this, she just said that it doesn't matter since the 2 of them are always together. He then asked if it's just possible to leave a mark on one person only, but Anya reasoned out that it's hard to mark a sorcerer. With their conversation going nowhere, Jerog just let her be and wondered how a spoiled brat like her became a sorcerer and a powerful one to boot. The silver-haired swordsman does know that Anya has her own criteria, but he still thinks it's pretty impressive that she has magical piggy banks that can grant any wish, as long as the value doesn't exceed the money saved in them. What do you know? Anya's golden piggy bank really is a treasure. One by one, the swordsmen tried their luck in beating Victor, but alas, he was way out of their league. If they didn't end up with a broken weapon, these men are brought to their knees, while Victor continues to dominate the competition with just a single strike. By now, Victor managed to take down 17 opponents already, with many of the swordsmen already saying that he'll surely be the winner of this competition. So what's the point in continuing this? Since no one was stepping up to challenge Victor, it didn't take long for Charlotte to enter the stage, with Victor saying that he was the only worthy opponent left in the competition. Charlotte glanced over to Vulcanus, trying to see what the dwarf's impression of them was, but Vulcanus only has his arms crossed and brows furrowed as he waits for the next match. Just then, Eren stood up, ready to fight as Kubaru cheered him on. It was only a short walk to the stage, and just like that, the announcer was quick to let everyone know that a new challenger has arrived. Victor took one good look at Eren and thought to himself that he was pretty strong, but our hero, respectful as ever, approached Charlotte and told the older man that he was willing to wait if Charlotte wants to fight first. But Charlotte let him take the stage and told Eren that he must have forgotten his sword. Everybody kept on saying Eren forgets his sword, isn't he getting tired of it? But our hero only answered that he has it with him, with Charlotte saying that maybe he's got a few tricks up his sleeve. Finally, Eren steps into the stage thinking that he knows what it feels like, the desire to win. As soon as he entered his stage, Vulcanus looked at him strangely, but our hero is too focused on remembering the time that Ilya overtook him at the midterm evaluations. See, Eren, you do remember the feeling. I called it first. Remembering all that ignited our hero's burning desire to win, the very same thing his friends had. As he walks closer to his position, even Charlotte noticed the change in expression in Eren, who's determined to win this time, no matter who his opponent is. But during this time, Vulcan has already jumped out of his seat, while the two other dwarves followed suit. Just as he was about to start the fight, Eren told himself with so much conviction that he'll defeat them. And that's when Vulcanus interrupted Victor and Eren as they came face to face, scurrying towards their location. The dwarf said in a hurry that he has decided. The owner of the 10th numbering sword is Eren. Man, what a bone killer. And just when we thought we'd see another boss battle, well, that didn't exactly turn out the way we thought. Charlotte was the first to approach the dwarf, asking what he meant by that, while most of the swordsmen and spectators voiced out their complaints as well. Many of them were shouting about the unfairness of it all. They haven't even fought yet. Plus, they're starting to think that this was rigged too. But using his megaphone, Vulcanus told them to shut up. While he was at it, he reminded them that the purpose of this competition wasn't to determine the strongest fighter, but to find a swordsman that will inspire him. The two other dwarves were also quick to side with Vulcanus, saying that they also chose him as the winner, and just like that, the competition is over. As Vulcanus shooed away the crowd, he was quick to ask Eren to follow him while Victor only glared at the dwarf's retreating figure. Still, they were good sports and congratulated Eren for being chosen as the owner of the 10th numbering sword. Charlotte even told our hero that he already knew he was quite something, and even if he feels bad that they didn't get to win, he still congratulated our MC. Meanwhile, another figure seated among the stands is also not pleased with the turn of events. It's Randall, who sat quietly and just looked at the three people on the stage. Now back to the winner of the 10th numbering sword, Eren. Our hero was made to exhibit his swordsmanship skills, swinging left and right as per instruction by Vulcanus. As soon as the dwarf was satisfied, he made our hero put his sword down as the two other dwarves examined it. They were in awe, with one of them asking what kind of metal was used to create it with how sturdy it is. The other one exclaimed that no matter how much effort he put through, his hammer won't leave a mark on the blade, which made him wonder how the sword got so many scratches then. While the dwarves worked on the sword, the trio stood by since they didn't expect that the owner needed to be present throughout the whole process. Kubaru said he's never heard of a method like this, and that's saying something since our resident orc has been wandering for the last 10 years. Eren, too, was surprised to know that he has to show not only his swordsmanship, but his fighting spirit to the blacksmiths as well. But more important than this, Eren couldn't help but ask Kubaru if the reason they picked him is that they sensed the old man's energy instead. Kubaru answered that there was a chance they did, but he also assured Eren that he was doing well on his own. In no time at all, he'll be able to melt away the iron stake in his heart with his own flame someday. Still, Eren felt dejected at that fact. Suddenly, Kubaru decided that this won't do, which made Lulu and Eren turn to him. The fortune teller orc has decided that they need to get more out of this deal, especially since he saw how Eren is upset right after he was called out here for a sword he didn't even need. Kubaru's haggler mode is on. The orc marched over to Vulcanus, as Lulu told him to request a sword for the cat too. To say Vulcanus was not pleased with Kubaru's requests is an understatement. In fact, he can't believe the audacity of this orc, asking the dwarf to give them Aaron's sword free of charge. But wait, there's more. Kubaru has 2 more conditions for the blacksmith. The first one is that he has to provide a sword for Lulu and tailored equipment for Aaron, while the second one is just him asking them to let them watch over the process. Naturally, threw a fit upon hearing this, asking why should he abide by Kubaru's conditions. To this, the fortune teller orc answered Vulcanus up front. It's because the dwarf is actually using Aaron to improve his rusty skills. The dwarf was shocked, and before he could reason out, Kubaru went ahead and added that even the other 2 dwarves, Pablo and Dwanson, haven't been in practice for a while. So that's what their names are. I was about to call them Dwarf 1 and Dwarf 2. Kubaru wasn't done yet, and said that the 3 had been wandering around for a while now to look for inspiration until they chanced upon Aaron. And our hero happened to light a fire in their souls, just by looking at him. And since they didn't want to pass this up, they grabbed the chance and were bent on using him ASAP. This accusation was far too much for Vulcanus, who can't help but question Kubaru's authority on why he has so many things to say on this issue. To this, our resident fortune teller orc just said that he's one of the finest guides in the land. But great job, Kubaru, you sure pulled a Shinichi Kudo logic on them. And just like that, Aaron was given a new set of equipment that was much lighter than his old one, while the sorcerer cat finally got its own sword paired with a suit of armor. With Aaron's spirits lifted, Kubaru was happy that he made more out of the deal. At night, the dwarves started to work on Aaron's sword, with Dwanson hammering his smoldering sword pretty hard, polishing its shape. As soon as the dwarf is done hammering it, he immediately places it into the furnace, reheating it as the blaze grows stronger. Seeing this, Aaron made a mental image in his mind of himself with a block of metal and a mallet placed in front of him. He notes to himself that it's not the time to use the hammer yet, but instead, he ignited the flame in his heart to heat the metal block. Aaron kept up with his mental training, and before he knew it, they'd already spent a month in Darinku. While walking, Kubaru asks how his training is going, and our hero says that it's getting a little better with each day. But now, he can't help but notice how there aren't a lot of swordsmen in Darinku lately. Kubaru pointed out that it's only because of the numbering sword that a lot of them visited the city at that time, and since it was already awarded to Aaron, they have no reason to stay anymore. Hearing this, Aaron got a little sad since he also wanted to spar with as many of them as he can. But to this, Lulu just gave him a situation. It's a circumstance wherein thieves gang up on Aaron to steal his prized sword, assuring Aaron that he'll be much stronger by having one. Speaking of the sword, Kubaru tells them that they should go and check out if the sword is finished by now. Or not, Vulcanus says he's sorry with an embarrassed smile and reasoned that creating the numbering sword will take much longer than he thought. Kubaru then asks him how long they have to wait to see the sword, and Vulcanus promises that he'll have it done in a year. He even promised that it will be the best sword and his greatest masterpiece, much better than the sword he's using now. As Kubaru was about to give him a piece of his mind, Aaron easily accepted Vulcanus' appeal. Because of this, Kubaru pulled our hero aside and started talking in hushed tones that the dwarf may weasel his way out of this, and suggested a contract. But Aaron, this cinnamon roll too good for this world, said that they didn't come to Darinku to get a sword in the first place. Plus, it got pretty nice equipment too. Since that's what Aaron wants, Kubaru just let him be, and the trio went on their way again. Lulu also wished them luck and that the sorcerer cat was looking forward to their creations. Our trio finds themselves on the road again, talking about where they should go next. Kubaru mentioned that Lathian is the next city, explaining that it has the most swordsman academies throughout the Mios Kingdom. Just then, a strange but faint smell wafted in their direction, of which the first to notice was Lulu. As Kubaru was just about to tell Aaron to spar to his heart's content, the little mystic told them to stop. Lulu is now hissing, looking forward with wary eyes and saying that it can smell blood from up ahead. And right on cue, a strong wind blew just as the trio stopped in their tracks. Kubaru was the first to see the 2 hooded figures emerge from the bushes. It's Charlotte and Victor, who are both covered in blood. In a scared tone, he asked the brothers why they looked like that when they said that they'd been waiting for them. As they emerged, that's when the orc noticed the thing one of them has been holding. Kubaru was about to ask if it was what he think it is when Charlotte threw it in their direction, the decapitated head of Randall. Kubaru is now screaming, asking them how could they kill someone. But one of the brothers answered that they just got rid of a thief with a smile. They explained further that Aaron has been the target of many, which is why the two worked tirelessly to deal with them all. And now, they're seeking Eren the payment for their services. Eren's face grew pale as the brother's face let out a sinister smile, asking our hero to hand the numbering sword. In a threatened state, Lulu told them that they don't have the sword since it isn't even finished yet, but Victor just told the cat off. He believes that Eren is hiding it using sorcery. Still, Lulu is adamant, insisting that they don't have it, and Kubaru also joined in, asking the brothers if they're really risking their lives just for a sword. He warned them that they won't just be criminals in Dorinko, they'll be known wanted across the continent. To this, Charlotte thanked the orc for the concern, but they got it all figured out and no one's gonna suspect them at all. Especially since the brothers are known for their stellar reputation. They already got a story to run with. A band of thieves attacked Eren's small group, stealing his prized sword. Then swordsman brothers Victor and Charlotte happened to pass by but was a moment too late to save their lot. Kubaru was upset and disappointed at how the brothers turned out to be, but Eren was just quiet and asked them one question. Our hero told the two that he heard a lot of stories about them, of how they gained the respect of other swordsmen for their skills and notable deeds. So why are they doing something like this? Asks Eren. Our hero also said that if they don't give a proper answer, then they'll never have the sword, even at the cost of Eren's life. Victor was the one to answer Eren's question, and it was pretty straightforward too. The reason they did that is that the numbering sword is more important than everything else. Hearing this, Eren couldn't help but raise his voice in frustration. They were willing to do all that just for a sword. That the sword is much more important than all the lies they've taken even up to now. This time, it's Victor's turn to raise his voice, saying that a numbering sword isn't just a sword, and telling Eren that he knows nothing. Just then, Eren felt the demonic energy within the two grow stronger as Victor continues to tell them their side of the story. For the last 30 years, the brother duo was considered experts, and it's been 20 years since they've reached the limit of their skills. Charlotte said that they've done whatever they could to become masters and have dedicated their lives to achieving it. But even with all their efforts and dedication, they still haven't achieved that title yet, making them feel like they're trapped in hell. But they're not the only ones like this. There are a lot of swordsmen also struggling to overcome the last hurdle and become a master, putting their lives on the line for them to achieve it, just like what Victor and Charlotte are doing now. As the brothers' emotions intensify, so does the demonic energy that's engulfing the area. Eren already got his sword out, and he couldn't believe what was happening in front of him. The two men no longer resemble their human selves, becoming more demonic and emitting more of their putrid energy directed toward Eren. Meanwhile, our hero is still reeling from what's happening. How could he sense demonic energy coming from actual humans? Our hero braced himself for impact and released his ki, which took the form of the old man in yellow light. As they were about to face off, Droog suddenly appeared from nowhere and called Anya. The little girl was already waiting for his signal, and as soon as he did, Anya broke several golden piggy banks, and out came the strings of yellow light. Suddenly, this yellow light formed a circular pattern that turned into a portal. Eren and the others now have their attentions turned to the light as the portal continues to glow. After what seemed like a lifetime, an armored foot stepped out from the portal while the two brothers looked on in shock. Kubaru also couldn't believe what he was seeing. As Eren anticipates the person emerging from the portal, Kubaru exclaims that it was the Holy Kingdom's captain of the Black Knights, Ymit Crescentia. A baddie has just arrived. Sporting long black hair and a suit of armor, Ymit stands by the cliff overlooking the place where Eren and the others are. Eren couldn't believe it. She was the person Ilya talked about. But Ymit turned her attention toward the brothers, calling them by their names and said that they'd gone too far. Charlotte and Victor only glared at her, with Charlotte addressing her as Countess Crescentia and asking what she was doing in a place like this. But Ymit didn't answer his question. Instead, she took off her cloak and was about to draw her sword, while also telling them that she was giving them a chance to explain. Charlotte snarled at what Ymit said, turning his blade toward her attention, an act mirrored by his brother as well. The black-haired captain gave them one last warning, to explain their sides while they still can, before shouting at the brothers that this is the last ounce of mercy she will extend to them. As she did so, Ymit emitted a powerful ki, violet in color, pressuring the men. But Charlotte only signaled for his brother, who also ignited his demonic energy, therefore countering Ymit's ki. Disappointed at their response, the lady captain dropped her sword and in a blink of an eye, jumped from the cliff to Victor's face. And here we all thought Eren was OP. Turns out Ymit is even more OP than him. The two brothers and Eren were taken by surprise at her unnatural speed, and Victor tried to take a swing at her, which she managed to deflect using only her hand. Victor could only look in shock as Ednet gives him a hard kick that sent him flying in the opposite direction. Charlotte could only see a blur of clothing, and before he knew it, Ednet was already caught up to his brother, who she once again kicked and ended up hitting the foreign stone wall. Charlotte could only scream his brother's name as Ednet delivered the finishing blow, a direct punch. Charlotte ran as fast as he could toward them, but the sound of crumbling rocks and broken bones are the only things to be heard. Now that he made it to where the two are, Charlotte is speechless as Ednet tells him to take a good look at the most pathetic way to die for a sword master. Ednet stands in front of Victor's limp body, whose head she shoved far up into the stone wall. Fueled with anger at what happened to his brother, Charlotte dashed straight to her, but Ednet only spared him a glance before she delivered a precise swing of the sword. Before he could see what happened to him, a pair of hands holding a sword flew through the air as blood splattered everywhere. Charlotte couldn't even process what happened to him and just said a silent "oh" as Ednet stood behind him. As Charlotte turned to look at her, Ednet says what a shame it was how a human could turn into such a thing. And without feeling the tiniest bit of remorse, the lady captain told Charlotte that it was time for him to go as he crushed his head with her foot, giving him the death that he deserves. Man, that was some pretty intense fighting, and Ednet has yet to use her sword too. Eren and the others stood frozen in their tracks while Kubaru couldn't believe that she was able to kill two experts with her bare hands. Though Kubaru knew that it was a given since she was a sword master, seeing it up close is a different feeling. Such ruthless power. Suddenly, Anya is heard calling out to her captain, skipping happily as she hands over Ednet's sword. Anya also offered to clean her hands and shoes, and this delighted Ednet, who said she'll reward Anya for her efforts once they get back. Anya moved quickly, wiping Ednet's shoes squeaky clean as Juro approached them as well. As soon as the silver-haired man was in front of her, Ednet asked what he did think of it, but the man didn't have an ounce of a clue what she was talking about. Well, what Ednet meant by that is her old-fashioned way of speaking, which she exclaimed proudly. Furthermore, she asks him if he thinks she could pass as one of the nobles from the Holy Kingdom with her manner of speaking. Jurog could only agree and let out a laugh, saying that she definitely improved. But their conversation was broken when someone from the side asked Ednet how she could do that. To this, the black-haired knight looked toward the sound of the voice to see Eren facing them, with his sword drawn. Eren continues to ask Ednet how could she have such conviction when killing someone. Our hero explains that he's not trying to be sarcastic or anything, but he's asking that question because he's genuinely curious. Meanwhile, Lulu and Kubaru hold their breath at what could happen next. Eren continues that killing someone is an act that most people are naturally reluctant to do, so how could Ednet do it without a shred of hesitation? By now, Jurog is only looking at Eren with a smile, but our hero is way over his head, thinking that he can't do something like that, killing someone. With a hard stare, Eren continues to hold his stance, but Ednet only winced. Just then, she called him by his full name and stepped closer to him. It didn't occur to Eren that Ednet would actually know his name, which is why he lowered his weapon. Still in shock, but he wasn't prepared for what happens next. As Ednet stops in front of him, the captain of the Black Knights tells Eren that she's appointing him as a member of the Black Knights, under the order of the Holy Kingdom, Arvilius. So did Eren accept and thus started his journey as a Black Knight, or could he have rejected the offer? Maybe we get to see Eren and Ednet square it off.